Hi, I'm Lori with the
Hello.
To the Trade for Interior Design Community, and I have Nikki Levy here from Nikki Levy Interiors. I'm so excited, Nikki, because we've been friends online for forever, and I've always been, a big fan of yours, and I've watched your success as you've grown as a designer. So thrilled to have you. So thrilled to have you.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here. I feel like you and I are firm friends, and I can't believe this is the first time we're actually having a conversation.
I know. All those DMs, we
Mhm,
get to know
mhm,
each other for real.
mhm.
And, it solidifies the relationships that you have
Absolutely.
online. People always think like these online relationships aren't real. But I mean, I've
No,
met so many amazing people that I truly, truly adore
me too.
through
It- it-
Instagram and
and
Facebook.
what I find so interesting is that we've actually, and not only have I met them, but I get information from them. They give me feedback, and it's actually a very, very dynamic and real relationship. And it's like
Yes.
old-fashioned pen pals.
Yes, it is. It is like old-fashioned pen pals. And it's funny thing about this industry and probably unique to our community too is that we just have so many people who feel somewhat isolated in the world of design. I mean, you get in the weeds with your own projects and being able to connect with other people, even if it's just to have them say, yeah, that's exactly how I'd handle it as well, or yes, you can do this, you're fine. It's remarkable. I love how our community really
Yes.
bands together and
Yeah,
helps one
and
another.
everyone thinks that it's so competitive and dog eat dog, and I found it nothing but lovely and wonderful.
I
So,
love that. I love that. So you've immigrated from South Africa as a child, and well,
no,
how did your
out.
early oh wow, as an adult, and how did
Mhm.
your early cultural shift shape your design philosophy? How did that transfer into
Okay.
how you work on your business?
Okay, so it's interesting. So I actually moved here when I was 33 years old. I
Oh,
moved here with a
33.
4-year-old, a 6-year-old, and a 7-week-old. So I was moved here, husband fully, set up with a family. So as a child in South Africa, growing up in South Africa, I was very lucky because I grew up in a fantastic community. We had very wonderful friends and an amazing family, and South Africa was an amazing place. And I got to live through the transition from apartheid into a democracy, which was the most phenomenal thing to see firsthand. But South Africa as a country was very advanced, strangely enough, in interior design. I always found there were streets ahead of anything that I saw elsewhere for a long time. We traveled to the States when I was about 20, I believe it was, and I couldn't believe how unsophisticated certain things were. I mean, and
Sure.
I think that how that happened was South Africa absorbed all the influence from Europe, and then we had sort of a very cultural design in the aesthetic of the furnishings and the accessories and things that were made locally. So, but how that actually translated for me was that my grandfather and uncle were construction, and I would go with my grandfather onto the job sites, and I would play in the caravan that he had on a job site, and I would literally play with all the color decks, and he wrote books on color and paint. And him and my uncle built the first buildings in Africa that were held together. You're not held together, but had the overpass, the bridge overpass that people could walk through from building to
Oh,
building. So it
right.
was, yeah. So, and then I had that. And then on the other hand, I had my mom, who was fantastically creative. She did amazing things continually with moving us from place to place and designing. And she let me design my room, and she took me to every single meeting she had on site. As a little girl, all the way up to adulthood, I went with her to choose fabrics and tile and plumbing. And we moved about, I would say, about 17 times. So I had been really on every job site with her. So it was totally embedded and ingrained in me. And then my dad, who was a CPA, trained us in business from a kid. He would sit around the table and play devil's advocate, and we would have screaming matches. And he would like, okay, so you're saying this, but what about these 10 things? And okay, so now you on with these 10 things with me, but what about if you went on the other side? And he would teach us to think and how to think. And then every year we would choose stocks. My whole family would choose stocks from the stock market, and then we would track them, and then at the end of the year see whose stock did the best, and then we had to say why we chose those stocks. So my family was very, very, very instrumental in how we thought, questioning, design, selections, process. So I was very lucky. I had like
I love that.
university at home.
I think that that is so fantastic. I read a book, I forget the name of it, but years ago, probably in my 20s, and it was about the lost art of the apprenticeship and that how parents had stopped in like the 80, well, really the American in the United States primarily. The book was based in, it's just that we have really stopped our, I mean, while we still have like trade apprenticeships and things like that, the idea that your parents teach you what they know. I grew up with lots of kids who didn't know what their parents did for a living. Like you could ask them, I don't know.
So
I have no idea.
I'll tell you something crazy. So when I was little, I was in pre-K. The newspapers came around and they asked us what our parents did for a living. And I told them my dad was a doctor of money and that my mother went from place to place collecting men clients. And, and
I love it.
actually what she was at that stage, she was very entrepreneurial. She had personnel agencies where she would find recruitment agencies.
Sure.
And she would take me, like I used to, as a little girl, sit in the CEO of Avis Rent-A-Car. I used to sit in his office with my mom while they had meetings. So, but I was obviously older than pre-K at that stage. But I'm just saying, like, that was my
It's
understanding.
the way it went. Yeah.
Yeah.
So do you feel like you had no other choice? It was always going to be design?
So it really was always going to be design, even though I dabbled in advertising for a while, and I studied at university politics, philosophy, and international relations. I wanted to be a journalist because I love writing. So it was going to be so many other things, but it was always going to be design. And in fact, interestingly enough, my mother did one of her cousins did a ancestry check, and it worked out that all my relatives, like going like however many generations they went back, were in furniture making and carpentry.
Oh,
And
wow.
so it's literally in my blood, and I was going to be
Right.
here no matter what. And I was spray painting my mother's succulents in the garden because they really did not work color wise with the rest of her garden. And I was designing my own bedroom, and my mom would change my bedroom about every 2 years and let me go and choose the fabrics, and she would sew drapes and make headboards for me. It was never going to be anything else.
Right, right. And now that you're here, you look back on your life and you were like, of
Yeah,
course,
no.
and it's not that you can't we fight that thing inside of us sometimes, I think, of like who we truly are. And, this would make more money. It's certainly in the world of interior designer. This would be, better for my long-term success. And so many people I know in this industry, they're truly artists, and you really are. And you're a person who has a deep creative vision that you bring to your projects. Can you walk me through what does that feel like for you when you're first on a project, and how do you because you have such a your projects, I'm looking at them, your breadth of work, you couldn't say one is there's a Nikki Levy style, really, per se. I mean, it's almost like a tapestry where it's got multiple different ways of working. And so how is it that you choose what it is that the design is going to be?
Okay. So I think I mentioned to you in something I'd sent you a while back that I was a kid who had ADHD and dyslexia. So I 100% relied on my ears, which don't work always very well, but my eyes a lot. And I most often, not always, as a person walks through the door, I can take a look at them, absorb exactly what style and who they are, and translate that into an aesthetic. I pay close attention to hairstyles, to earrings, to jewelry, to clothes. And even if a client says to me, "Oh, but I'm wearing my gym clothes, this is not who I am," the bracelet that you're wearing, or the way you're wearing your makeup, or the shoes you have on, tell me exactly where you're going aesthetically. So it really does make a difference. I can read aesthetics based on personality and based on visually words that people use. A certain, like, for instance, I use, as an example, I'm a very my own personal home and style is very whimsical, exceedingly romantic and pretty, and the words I use are words that relate to that. I use very soft words, exquisite, and I say word like surreal, and it's very lyrical sometimes, the words and the vocab that I use. And if a client comes to me and they're using very, very hardened language, or the way they're expressing themselves verbally to me, will guide me, because usually not that people are one dimensional, people are multifaceted and multidimensional, but the words and the way our clients present themselves, believe them,
Right.
believe them.
Right.
Listen, watch, see, because it is no joke. They are presenting who they are. And if you're smart, you'll be able to translate that into an aesthetic.
I love that. And so that you're looking for the details just like you would in a project. You're looking at the
Review.
details of who that person is and what they're saying and phrasing in order
Mm-hmm.
to develop an idea of who they are.
Mm-hmm.
And then you fuse that with I'm sure their wants and needs and
But
expectations
that
and the
goes
design.
without
Yeah.
saying. That goes
Yeah.
without saying.
Yeah.
Anyone can write down a list of questions to ask a client and get the answers. But I think to really understand their their defining visual point of view, it's much more than that. You have to listen to how they're expressing themselves and how they present themselves.
Right. I
Mm-hmm.
love that. I really love that. And I feel like your design aesthetic being so diverse, does that attract a larger number of clients because there's always something that they see in your work?
So I actually put out a reel the other day because somebody DM'd me and they said, "Love your stuff, very confused on where you land on the design spectrum."
Oh, weird. I think
No,
it would
but,
be.
I looked through it and I see what you're saying, because we literally have neon rooms with leopards in them right next to a very soft, gentle coastal room, literally side by side.
Sure.
So I totally get what you're saying. But I think that if you're an artist, one of the amazing joys of being creative is that you have this huge this volume of places you like to indulge. So you have that fun, vibrant, sexy, dynamic side, and then you have that really coastal, chill, casual side, and then you have that ultra glam, sophisticated side, and you just have to tap into different aspects of yourself. So every single thing we put out onto Instagram is our own work.
Sure.
We don't post anything that isn't our own work. And everything is truly representative of us. Sometimes we do homes that I absolutely love, but it ends up being that it's for the client. The client loves it and wants it, but it doesn't represent me as a designer or a creative. And I don't put them onto my Instagram. It doesn't mean we don't love it, but you put out there what you want to come back to you.
Sure.
So, so I don't post anything that I wouldn't want to really
Repeat.
indulge.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I don't want to repeat because perhaps it was something I struggled with or just wasn't, That's my light going out. It was perhaps something we struggled with or didn't resonate as strongly. And in the end, the client is super happy it's not for me. So I want to have all these little facets of myself and my design team, because I have the most spectacular design team. You just reach in those places. It's like when you go on vacation, you're buying vacation clothes and they're fun and they're frivolous. And when you go to a wedding, you buy wedding clothes and they're more sophisticated. There's no difference in that.
Right. Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah. Has that helped you or hurt you when you're starting to think of yourself as a brand? Because I do think of you as a brand and I think you're going to expand. I really do. I
So we're
see
starting to
a
expand.
big future for you in the world of
The,
design and
yeah,
product
well,
and
thank
lots
you.
of different avenues because of all that you can do. Do you, I think it, now personally, I think it helps you that
Yes.
you have such a wide range because I think that's what people want, especially, you know, times change and people change. And I know myself too. Think of all the houses I've had and the personality in the way I've designed each house I've lived in has been so different depending on what I felt like at that moment. You know, who I was when I was 22 is not the same person I am at 50.
Mm.
So, you know, those are things that, you know, you grow and you change and your aesthetic changes as well.
Well, wow. So I look through all of our interior design, and Instagram, I think, is the perfect place to look because you really have a timeline of what's been going on. And
Right.
I'll sometimes go down to the very bottom, which takes a lot of scrolling. But I still love every single thing we did. Everything. There isn't anything on my Instagram that doesn't speak to me. And the wonderful thing is, I get maybe 2 or 3 phone calls a day of people looking to use us. So it
Right.
definitely has not hurt me.
No.
And we turn away probably 98%, maybe even 99% of people because we cannot overburden our design team because we're not production.
Right.
So, but the thing is that people link in or attach themselves to different homes that we'll do. And they'll hop onto our website and they'll say, I like these 3 homes. And and it talks to them and they see we can do it. And also another comment that people make is that they say to me, I can see you can do so many things. I know you can help me too. So from that
Love
perspective, it's
that.
great. And
That's
now
what I
that
think.
we
I would think that that
Mhm.
would be absolutely, if I were looking at your site, that would feel, I know, you know, I can't, don't say this to every designer, but you're a designer I would choose for myself too,
Well,
because that is because you can do so much. And
thank
I
you.
would feel like that breadth of work and style, you would definitely be able to figure out who I am. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And I think that that is a huge selling point for you.
Thanks. Yeah, and it's true. And now that we're launching our brand made, Nikki Levy, that was born out of me and my pottery that I have just come back to as an adult. I did it for years as a kid. My mom, occupational therapist, guided us to do it, with the dyslexia, fine motor skills. And it makes such a difference just for parents out there. If your kids have any kind of learning difficulties, put them in pottery. I can do a whole nother podcast about that. But anyway, so as an adult, I began working in pottery in the last 18 months. And at Kips Bay, I needed to fill my room. I had this 2 huge hallways and a stairwell, and it was going to cost me an untold fortune to fill it. Like I just kept putting things in and I just get lost. So I decided I would take my own pottery and I had so much of it in my cabinets. I mean, I'd never given a piece away. I'd like hidden it. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to put it out there. And out of every single element of the entire Kips Bay, I received DMs, emails, and calls. How do we buy your pottery? And it was kind of like eye-opening to me. I was like, maybe there's something there. And my husband had been telling me every time I brought home a piece, he'd say $5,000, like as if he was going to sell it. So I
Right.
was like, maybe there's something there. And I started playing. And all of a sudden I realized like I was doing furniture and lighting and wallpaper, all based tile, all based on the image of the pottery, and phenomenally pretty, beautiful stuff. And
Well, I've gotten a
so,
sneak peek and I think it's
uh,
amazing. I
I don't
can't
know, like, what do
wait
you
until everyone can see it because it's
Yeah,
just
no,
so
it's gonna
good.
be, but so that so my ability to do many things has translated into that. So at the moment, I'm focused on one style, which is I wish I could show you. I'm like dying to like put it
No,
all
you
up.
can't. You can't. You
I'm not
can't.
gonna. So but Eh, you know, not that I'm Picasso. Like, I'm not Picasso. Okay. I'm not comparing myself to Picasso, but you know how he had his different eras?
Sure.
That is how I see our brand going. You know,
Oh,
you launch a
absolutely.
collection and it defines you, but then you bring in other elements that are still totally you, but totally new.
I love that. I really love that path for you.
Thank
Now
you.
you touched on Kip Space. I really want to talk to you about that. You knocked it out of the park on your Kip spaces, and it is a difficult space to do. Usually, when people get a hallway, they're disappointed because it feels like it's just a random space, and you had the downstairs hallway, up the stairs, and the upstairs hallway. And you did such a great job with your, first of all, it's a huge space, so like you
Oh,
said,
it was
you
the second
lost.
largest space anyone's ever designed for Kip's Bay.
Oh my goodness, such a large space. And but you did such unique and interesting things in your space that I noticed because I was sort of paying attention that everyone that featured it, yours would be the first picture. So Veranda magazine, House Beautiful, all of the major magazines, yours was the first photo. And it's, as you know, people tend to pick the strongest photo as their first photo. So, and it was because I think of you did something with I never see a hallway. I never see a hallway be a first space. Never. And it was so well done and so interesting. It evoked, like I said, nostalgia was part of it, which was
Well, I have
the
to tell
mood
you the story
wallpaper,
of
the
it.
mood ring wallpaper, like
Oh my
the
God.
way you hung
So
the drapery, so different, so fresh, like just so many elements that
so
were exciting.
the best I went on an adventure on that hallway. So I got this enormous space and I was, what am I gonna do? What am I
Sure.
gonna do? So I thought start at the very beginning, because according to Sound of Music, it's a very good place to start. So so I started at the entry and I came and I did the most beautiful, romantic, saturated purples and pinks and lavenders. And then as I was moving through it, I started, like, on a different day, I was in a different mood. So I started transitioning from there into sort of as we're turning now and going up the stairs, we're going into like the burnt oranges. And so as you're transitioning, this huge rug was transitioning in the colors, and the walls had 38 different colors running from top to bottom, transitioning from the pinks and blue to the pinks and purples to the oranges and mustards to the teals, blues, and greens. So there was 38 colors in the wall, and there were 81 colors in the rug, all ombreing as it was going up. And I was taking it and I realized, you know what this is? Because happening over days, these are me as a person. There's my romantic, whimsical side. There was a secret garden hidden under the stairs, which is my very cocooned inner self. I started getting a little more playful as I went up the stairs. Then you turn to the right on the stairs, and it was vibrant blues and yellows and greens and oranges at the right, with this amazing art by Happy Art. And it was sensational. And that's my vibrant fun side. And then as you turn to the left of the stairs, it was very dark. We had this on Mexico wallpaper, very dark, very introvert, very, you know, all about and it was leading actually into the main bedroom. So it just made sense to like bring it in. And so every facet of my personality, and I would imagine most people's personalities, were displayed throughout the space.
You use so many different materials too, and very like smart choices to blend, wallpapers, tiles. Like you went for it. You went for it. I can't even imagine what that would have cost you.
Well, well, let me tell you. So, firstly, we had very generous, very, very generous people like Artistic Tile, and Kravitz was sensationally generous with me. I mean,
Oh,
the way Lana
well,
from
you need to have partners when you're attempting
oh,
something
oh,
like
oh,
this.
and you know what? And thank God, like Curry and Company and Made Goods. Oh my goodness, Made Goods. If they hadn't, if I tell you, I mean, I'm a Ruggle Up. I mean, I've been working with Ruggle Up on my rug range. So, but if I hadn't had such sensational partners in this and had such amazing relationships prior to that with these partners, I would be nowhere. It still cost me an arm and a leg. And my advice to anyone doing a show house is don't do it to get new clients. Because I don't believe that companies who are trying to get new clients are in the right space for the amount of time and money that it takes. Do
Right.
it to elevate your brand.
Right.
Because because it genuinely, I spoke to a lot of interior, and do it because you just get to hang out with the best people on
The
earth
best
at
of
the
the best.
oh my
Yeah.
God, and
Kingston
it's
is
so
like the
fun and you learn so much. So that's another great reason. But you can't choose the space you're going to get. And there were people there who spent well over $100,000. Well,
oh
I
yeah.
mean, I spent a significant amount and it was not cheap. But people who do the kitchens and the bathrooms, I mean, the first Skips Bay, we did 2 bathrooms, and that was during COVID. So that was a little bit of a big thing to take on during that time.
Challenge. Yeah.
But I think that Kips Bay, I did it because I wanted to see if I could.
Right. And what a space
Mm,
to tackle.
mm,
And I think that you did it, but I think you did it outstandingly well. I mean,
thank
in
you.
my opinion, you were a huge standout star, breakout star. And I really am excited to see that it will sort of launch you into the product side because, that is clearly, your background leads to it and your passion leads to it. So I think it's going to be really interesting. And I think that what I love to hear about your journey is that you have a plan in mind. You have a goal in mind. You're not just doing it for eco's sake or for, you have a method to your madness.
Oh,
You
and
have
madness
plans
it
on plans,
is.
girl.
So, so I think again, and I'm going to keep referring back to what I think probably an untold number of interior designers have, which is ADHD or dyslexia or a learning disability, is that if we don't have a plan, we cannot function. You
Right.
have to help yourself to be organized. And if you can't be organized on your own, you have to have a team who will get you there. So I'm a fantastic big picture person. Fantastic. I have plans. My husband says I am the best. What do you like? I make things appear just by imagining them. There's a word for it. I can't remember. But and that's because I plan. So and I know that I'm starting here, but I know that I'm going to end there. It's not going to be easy, and there's going to be challenges. But I have goals. I set them. I reach them. I move on. And I have literally done that from the beginning of my business, when it literally started on a laptop on my bed, onto a kitchen table, into a home office, into an office in my husband's office, into a small studio, into this amazing space we're in now. And I knew every single one of those steps I jumped without thinking. But I was not thinking about, I was thinking, let me phrase this correctly. I was not thinking about what could go wrong, because things will always go wrong. I was thinking about how could I do this right?
Oh, I love that.
And that is
That's
what I
confidence
focused on.
building right there. You're giving yourself the confidence to go for it. And I will tell you, those out there listening, who even come to me and like, how did you start interior design community? And what I didn't know I couldn't. No one told me no. I just did it. And sometimes that is when you're thinking to yourself, I wish I was on a panel. I wish I had a showroom. I wish I could do a show house. I wish I could do, whatever it is that dream I could get published in this magazine. You have to go for it.
You have to.
Have to plan and go for it. It's not going to be overnight that you're going to get to that goal, whatever that goal might be, but plan for the success you want.
So interestingly enough, even when I've had challenges and I've had really horrible challenges, I've never looked at it and thought, gee, they must be right. Instead, I thought they're wrong. They don't know it. Let me show them. I was told at school I was never going to finish school. When I finished school, they told me I'd never finish university. When I finished university, I had an amazing job at an advertising agency with a boss who adored me. And she asked me to help her manage a home that was being built. And then she saw I did that, and then she gave me the offices to do, and then I had a baby, and I designed the baby layette, and people walking through the factory where the layette was being designed called me. They said that the owner of the factory gave them my number. Will I do their house? I'd never done a house before. I mean, like I'd never, but I was like, yeah. Because, as Richard Branson said, something like tell them yes and then figure it out. Like,
Right.
you don't have to know everything,
Right.
And
I mean, how many like actors took roles where they had to horseback ride or had to,
figure it
do
out.
karate or, fly planes, and then they learn. You learn what
But
you have to learn
if
immediately.
exactly, and if you don't do it, if you don't have the tenacity and the initiative to do it, it's not a job for you, because it is the the most difficult job in the world. So it's like parenting, which is also another best, most difficult job in the world. You have to have initiative. You have to have confidence. You have to, like, when a client tells me they don't like something we've designed, which every so often happens, I'm like, you're totally wrong. Like, you are wrong. But I'm talking more in presentations, not in, it doesn't often happen in the house. But if I show them a presentation, I'm like, you're wrong. I 100% love what I'm showing you, but I will change it because it's your home. I think if you saw it in your home, this would be your first love. And sometimes the biggest chances you take are the best end result. And I tell you how many times we've actually started like just telling this to clients as a standard. When they just throw the baby out with the bathwater and say no to a design, we tell them, do you know that we have statistically measured how many times we then design two other designs and go back to the first? It's almost an 80%. It's almost at 80%. I think it was like
Right.
70 or 79%, where people literally, and it's just because you're showing them something that's so different from what they had visualized,
Sure.
They didn't know they wanted it.
No, not, and it's hard to, you can visualize it obviously with a good mood board and drawings, but it's still a commitment, and people get scared about
Well, I think it's
commitment,
a flaw, but
you
we
know?
end up going back to the beginning more often than not, because I have the confidence to say, listen, I think you're wrong. I'll
Do you
change
feel
it
that
for
that's
people
happening
more.
more now? I mean, I think attention spans have changed because of we're all online scrolling, and we just saw somebody post the other day that like, do you find it hard to commit to a movie when you could just like scroll, and I'm like, I do that. I'm like, a movie is an hour and a half. I don't know if I want to have the attention span for that. And I'm wondering if that lack of attention span also leads to a lack of commitment that a client might want to design. It might
You know what?
scare them even more in today's world.
So we do renderings for everything.
Sure.
Well, our clients see pre-renderings and then rendered, and I would say most of the time it's great. Maybe with the swap outs of a few fabrics or materials, it's fantastic. I think that the clients who are scared of their own confidence, are scared of whether they make a good decision or not, and who feel like there's something out there, there's a better movie out there, there's a better chair out there, they can continue to look forever. If
Sure.
you let them, so this is what I say, if they're happily married, I say this, there is not only one man out there for you. You could have married 10,000 men in the world. Where there are 7 billion men, I will almost guarantee you that there are, even if it's 500 men, but you chose this man. You decided that this man was the greatest. And you believed it because that's what you told yourself. And this chair, there are, I promise you, probably 10,000 beautiful chairs out there that you would also love. But you're going to commit to this chair because we're telling you it's the greatest. And
Right.
you could just look forever.
Right. Right. You could. And so trust someone who it's their job to select for you. And certainly that's why you're hiring them. You know, speaking of conflict, was there ever a sticky conflict that you had with a vendor or contractor or client, and how did you resolve that? How are your conflict resolution
We
skills?
have had a number of sticky conflicts, and some of them, went a more serious route. And actually, only one of them went a very serious route, and it was resolved and it was fine. It had to be sorted out. It was fine. Then there are the smaller conflicts that eat through the confidence of us in the vendor. So, for instance, we have an issue where we find a vendor. We absolutely love the vendor. He does 3 fantastic jobs for us. We give him more work, and all of a sudden, he didn't say, no, I don't have time, and now he's letting us down.
Right. Right.
So that causes me a problem. I need my vendors to be able to say no. So the one that was serious, we actually, the vendor, I felt wasn't doing a good enough installation. His cabinetry was stunning. I pulled the installation out of the project, and we took care of the installation on our side. It was the only way to do it. Otherwise, it was going to land in a very serious situation, and it wouldn't be fair on my client. It wouldn't be fair on us as a company, and it also wouldn't be fair on him. He's trying his best. He had just over promised and overburdened his team.
Right.
Well,
Right.
I found the way that he wasn't losing, I wasn't losing, and the client wasn't losing. But it was serious. It was
I love that.
serious.
You were looking for an equitable solution for all parties.
Correct.
And that's the goal. Even when sometimes our emotions get into play and it becomes, you promised, you let me down, and we get mired in those feelings instead of,
But
that might be true, but this is what is, and this is what needs to happen.
So here's where I land with that. Don't come to me with problems, come to me with solutions. Like, there are going to be problems. So I tell every client, one of the the only thing I can guarantee them is that there's going to be a problem. I have no idea what it is, because if I knew what it was, I would be able to avoid it. But I can guarantee you that there's going to be a problem. And the only thing I can promise you about that is we will work with you to resolve it, because we are there to advocate and be your team member. So that's important. But for instance, I don't think that these cabinetry people wanted to be in this position any more than I wanted to be in the position.
No.
So it doesn't help to bully them, although I'm sure they felt bullied, because I'm sure they felt like, I think my desperation of getting the cabinetry in was very evident in the fact that every morning I woke up, I'm like, where are the cabinets? When are they getting here? I need them, I need them, I need them. I'm sure they felt harassed. But I wasn't going after them. I just wanted information. And that's what
Right.
eventually I said, just, even if it's bad news, just tell me. I just want to know so that I don't have to be in this limbo position anymore, you know? And so when it came to be, when I said, listen, I know you're going to send us fantastic cabinets. I know the material's going to be great, but I kind of lost trust. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull the installation away from you because I think it will save us a lot of drama and it's best for everyone. They were so happy. They were like, thank you. You know, because
Sometimes we overcommit because we want, I mean, I think we all have that inner people pleaser in us. And even the designers I know have gotten into a point where they've had 20, 25 projects and they're like, maybe I shouldn't have said yes to a few of these.
so that's so what you have to do. Firstly, if you're saying yes to a job that you see a red flag, you're saying no to a job that's going to come down the pipeline that was going to be a fantastic job. So you have to ask your client, your potential client, three things. What is the scope? What is the timeline? And what is the budget? If you ask your client those, potential client, those three things, and any of those don't align with you, you cannot take on that job. And I tell you, especially the timeline,
Right.
especially the timeline, because maybe the budget is not as high as you would like, but it's in an area that would really elevate your status, then maybe it's worth it. But
Right.
if it's in the area that would elevate your status and the budget is fantastic, but they need it now and you don't have time, you will damage your reputation.
Right. Right. And it's not worth that.
Timeline is the most important thing we deal with.
So, how much of your business today is referral versus clients just finding you online?
So we don't do a lot of homes for clients who have moved 2 or 3 times, and we just keep doing homes for them. So that's one part of our business. Then I would say 50% is word of mouth and 40% is Instagram or online driven. My favorite client is a client who has followed me for a long time and then they're so excited to work with us.
Oh, I love that.
That is my favorite, and it's my favorite client because it's not like they looked at me yesterday and then could afford me the day after. It's a client who's been working for maybe 10 years and all of a sudden is in the financial position to be able to work with us. And they are so elated and so excited. And it's just so fun for us, to be able
I
to
love
generate.
I love hearing that. And speaking of that, social media, you do share your personality quite a bit. How much of your studio culture is curated versus real life? Like, do you curate the way you're presenting yourself
No.
online in order to attract that client? Or are you
Does it
just
look
being
like I'm curating myself online?
correct? Aren't we all a little bit? Come on.
So I am, I would not be on Instagram ever or at all if it wasn't for the business because I don't like things that are not authentic and things that are molded to appear a certain way, but then are a completely different way in reality. So whatever I am online is what I'll be in person. And the funny thing is, people tend to be scared of me, and it blows my mind because I'm like, I don't know why I would intimidate you because I'm a little bit, I'm like just me. I'm like just a girl from Benoni in South Africa where there's 5 children in my class. And, I'm from this teeny tiny town and like, it's just strange that like me, like I'm the most like shy. I'm very shy. I love one-on-one, but I hate big crowds. I'm like, and if you talk to me, I'll definitely talk to you, but I'll never go up to someone. But I'm not a scary person. And you should see that from Instagram. I
Well,
don't
your
know
work
why.
is, I think it's probably because your work is so good. And when you have this luxury design aesthetic, you know, I think that people, the fear not isn't just who you are, but it can be rather intimidating about what that actually entails. I mean, and that's a double-edged sword of luxury design. When you see really someone who does it so flawlessly, you tend to think like the expectation that they're going to have of you, of the project, of what that's going to cost, all of those factors are going to be intimidating to an everyday person. You know, they're just not going to know what it is that costs. And
I
I think
mean,
that's something that we typically do as an industry, maybe incorrectly sometimes. I think sometimes, you know, all of our pricing is behind closed doors, and that can be very
like our
intimidating.
Snapple is behind closed doors.
Yeah.
Nothing. We
Yeah.
are completely transparent.
That's
Everything has a
fantastic.
link. Every single thing that we present to a client has a link that will take them back to the website so that they can view it on their own. We not, I mean, we are, and we only do that because it just helps everyone move forward. But I think that the reason why people get intimidated is because there's this fallacy of celebrity, not that I'm celebrity at all, but there's this of like standoffishness, like, you know, and
Yeah.
whereas I'm just like shrinking behind the curtain just because I'm shy, not because I'm hiding from you. It's like if you would please come say hello to me, I'd feel so much better.
I love that. What is in your plans for the next, let's just say 10 years from now? What does that look like for Nikki Levy Design?
Okay, so my brand is being developed at lightning fast speed. We've had a lot of interest with a lot of different companies. We have a lot of meetings coming. I see furniture, fabrics, wallpaper, tile. I see just across the board of being able to, to really enter into that wares market. I'm very, very excited for it because when I was a little girl, this is what I literally did in my head. I walked through these things, and so it's like living that dream. So that's there. I hope that my team, who happen to be the bunch of most wonderful, incredible, fantastic people, I hope they continue to grow within the company because, no one can do it on their own. You rely
Right.
so heavily on people around you, whether it's your vendors or your subs or your general contractors or your interior designers. My interior design team is the most phenomenal, wonderful, incredibly talented, kind, special people who I hope that they grow as we grow. And, I want everyone to succeed in this space. So I hope to see them, they're going to have families. I hope that their place within the firm, is elevated and as it should be. I hope, I hope that you know, it's funny. I have two dreams. I want to be an iconic designer, and I want to be able to one day retire and not be fearful
Right. Right.
that means. And I'm hoping that is what I'm working towards, is being
Right.
able to really, I never want to retire per se, but I want to get to the point where I'm focused on beautiful things and creating beautiful things without any kind of financial insecurities or fears, which I actually don't have. But you've got kids at college, you've got
Sure.
to
Sure.
take care of. My parents live with me. You've got in-laws. You've got so many responsibilities. So there's so much on the career side. There's on the family side. There's my team. There's vendors who I hope to. Well, we really just want to bring everyone up with us.
I love that you said that, honestly, like, especially about your team, because it's so wonderful when a designer who builds, it's not inherent to become a designer. To me, doesn't mean you're necessarily a great manager, but being a good manager, and I will tell you this because I've managed big teams, it really requires you seeing your staff for who they are and their hidden talents, and talking to them on a regular basis about what they love about their job, what they don't love about their
But
job,
we
and
do,
trying to move that mission so that they are. And I can tell that you're doing that. I can
yeah.
tell that you care about them as humans and them as they have personal growth that they want in their
Hmm.
life too. It's
Hmm.
not just servicing Nikki Levy Design. You want them to grow as people, as in their career and
Yeah.
have opportunities. And that
Yeah.
is fantastic.
Well, I will tell you, and we would probably need a whole another hour to discuss this, but the processes and the way I brought my business, we went through a very, very, very difficult patch where we were either going to have to close our doors or me go back to being one designer or elevate. And I did a lot of thinking on how I wanted to elevate the firm. And we literally, and I'll one day maybe be able to tell you how we did this. I literally sat and we knocked it out. We really we figured it out. And I will tell you that the only time I ever hear from my clients now is to tell me how much they love something.
Oh, I love that.
So we really we've done a revolution in our
And that
firm.
was changing a lot of your operating
Oh, processes.
procedures, your
We just processes, procedures, but we did it in such a specific and well-defined way that I actually you put me in touch with that firm, that financial firm,
yes,
and
yeah,
they looked through it and they actually said it was one of the most phenomenal processes that they had seen. And there was very little that they could, there was some advice, invaluable advice that they gave us, but there was very little that they could fault. So that
I
was
love
lovely.
that.
Yeah.
That's a good one because honestly, they talk to designers all day long. So if they're telling
Hmm.
you your system is fantastic,
Yeah.
run
And they
with
gave us a
rank with
few,
that one.
they gave us a few, tips and hints and things to do, but it
Sure.
was basically very, very well rounded. And we just continually develop the process.
That's fantastic. Well, I want everyone here to make sure that you follow Nikki Levy. We're going to put all of her links on our blog post so that you can go run over and check her out and make sure that you connect with her as one of your community members because she's just so fantastic, as you can clearly see, and you want her in your friend group and part of our community.
And
Thank you,
and
Nikki.
I just want to say, if anyone
Yeah.
ever has any questions or advice on the industry, I love having
Oh,
these discussions, and they can reach out to me at any time.
thank you so much. That is so generous. And believe me, this is somebody you want to have in your Rolodex so that you can ask her questions because she's been there and done that. So
Sure have.
fantastic. Thank
Thank you
you.
so much for having me.
Bye.
Bye.